Raymond Collins stood in the arrivals area of Krabi International Airport, clutching his phone and staring at the unanswered messages he had sent to Sassathorn over the past 3 hours. He was 63 years old, freshly arrived in Thailand after a 14-hour flight from Vancouver, carrying 2 suitcases and the expectation that the woman he had been in a relationship with for 10 months would be waiting to greet him. Instead, every call went to voicemail. Every message showed as delivered but unread, and the growing knot in Raymond's stomach told him something was very, very wrong. 10 months earlier, Raymond had 290,000 Canadian dollars in his retirement accounts money from selling his auto parts distribution company and his house in Vancouver, money he had carefully saved over 40 years of work. He had a girlfriend named Sassathorn, though everyone called her Knock, a 31-year-old tour guide from Krabi who sent him good morning messages every day, called him her husband, and made him believe that his retirement would be spent not alone, but with a woman who genuinely loved him. Now he had nothing. The money was gone, sent in installments over 10 months for her mother's medical bills, for renovations to her family home, for startup capital for a small tour business they were supposedly building together. 290,000 Canadian dollars, approximately 210,000 US dollars, transferred through Western Union, bank wires, and mobile payment apps to accounts that Knock said belonged to her family, her business partners, her contractors. And Knock herself was gone too. Her phone was disconnected. Her Facebook account had vanished. Her line messages were not delivering. The address she had given him, the address of her family home where she said she would meet him, belonged to a different family entirely, who had never heard of anyone named Sassathorn or Knock. Raymond stood in that airport terminal, jet-lagged and disoriented, and slowly came to understand what had happened. The woman he had been in a relationship with for 10 months, the woman he had video called nearly every day, the woman who had called his elderly parents mom and dad during their conversations, the woman he had sent his entire retirement savings to support had never been real. She was a professional scammer, likely juggling multiple foreign boyfriends simultaneously, extracting money through carefully constructed emotional manipulation and the illusion of long-distance love. This is the story of how Raymond Collins lost everything without ever meeting the woman he thought he loved. This is the story of how online romance scams work, not through sudden requests for large sums of money, but through months of patient relationship building, daily affection, and small escalating requests that gradually drain a victim's entire life savings. And this is the story of why the most dangerous scams are not the obvious ones, but the ones that make you believe you have found genuine love with someone on the other side of the world. If you've been enjoying the stories I create, please consider hitting the subscribe button. Your support is crucial for the growth of this channel and helps me dedicate time to making these videos despite my commitment to a full-time job. Thank you for being here. Raymond Collins was born in Vancouver, British Columbia, in 1960. The second of 3 children in a working-class family. His father worked as a dock worker at the Port of Vancouver. His mother was a seamstress, and they lived in a modest house in East Vancouver. Raymond was a practical, hard-working kid who was good with his hands and had a natural understanding of how mechanical systems worked. After finishing high school in 1978, Raymond got a job at a local auto parts supplier, working in the warehouse and learning the business from the ground up. He was reliable, detail-oriented, and good with customers. By his late 20s, he had been promoted to sales manager, and by his mid-30s, he had partnered with the owner to expand the business into distribution across British Columbia. Raymond married a woman named Patricia when he was 32. She worked as an administrative assistant at a law firm, and they met through mutual friends. The marriage was stable for many years. They bought a house in Burnaby, raised no children by choice, and built comfortable lives centered around work and occasional travel. But the marriage gradually lost its spark. Patricia became increasingly focused on her career, Raymond on his business, and by the time they were both in their late 50s, they had become more like business partners than spouses. The divorce was finalized when Raymond was 60. It was amicable but emotionally draining. They sold the house they had shared for 28 years, split the assets, and went their separate ways. Raymond moved into a small apartment in Vancouver, continued running his business, and tried to adjust to living alone. But Raymond found the loneliness crushing. He had spent 30 years married, and suddenly he was eating dinner alone every night, waking up in an empty apartment, going to bed with no one to talk to. His friends were all married or in long-term relationships, and Raymond felt like the odd one out at social gatherings, the divorced guy, the single one, the one everyone pitied. When Raymond was 62, he decided to retire. He had been working for over 40 years, and he was tired. His business partner offered to buy out Raymond's shares for 120,000 Canadian dollars, which, combined with his savings and the proceeds from selling his share of the marital home, gave Raymond approximately $290,000, enough to retire comfortably if he was careful. But Raymond did not want to spend his retirement alone in Vancouver. The cost of living was high, the weather was dreary, and he had no real connections keeping him there. He started researching places where he could retire abroad, places where his savings would stretch further, where the weather was warm, where he could maybe find companionship without the complications and expectations of dating in Canada. Thailand kept appearing in his searches. The cost of living was low, the weather was tropical, and there seemed to be a large community of Western retirees who had found happiness there. Raymond joined Facebook groups for expats in Thailand, watched YouTube videos about retiring in Southeast Asia, and began imagining what his life could look like in a place like Chiang Mai or Krabi. But before Raymond even decided whether to move to Thailand, he met Nok. In September of 2022, Raymond joined a Facebook group called Expats in southern Thailand. He had been thinking about retiring to Krabi or Phuket, and he wanted to learn more about what life was like in those areas. He posted a few travel photos from a previous vacation to Costa Rica and wrote a brief introduction. "Hi everyone, I'm Ray from Vancouver. Thinking about retiring to southern Thailand in the next year or so. Any advice or recommendations would be appreciated." Within a few hours, he had received several friendly comments welcoming him to the group. One comment stood out. It was from a woman named Sasathorn Kitticorn, whose profile photo showed a pretty Thai woman with a warm smile. She wrote, "Welcome, Ray. I am from Krabi, and I work as tour guide. If you need help or want to know about life here, I am happy to help you. Beautiful area, good people. I think you will love it here." Raymond clicked on her profile. Her page showed photos of her leading tours through beautiful limestone cliffs, posing with tourists at beaches, and spending time with what appeared to be her family. She looked genuine, professional, normal. Raymond sent her a private message, thanking her for the welcome and asking about the cost of living in Krabi. Nok replied within an hour, and they began what would become daily conversations. She was friendly, warm, and genuinely helpful. She answered all his questions about rent prices, food costs, visa requirements, and the expat community in Krabi. She never asked for anything, never seemed pushy or flirtatious. She was just helpful and kind, but after about 2 weeks of daily messaging, their conversations began to shift. Nok started asking more personal questions about Raymond's life, his family, his marriage, his feelings about retirement. Raymond found himself opening up in ways he had not expected. He told her about his divorce, about his loneliness, about his fear that he had wasted his best years building a business and a marriage that had both ended, leaving him with money but no purpose. Nok listened. She responded with empathy and understanding. She told Raymond about her own struggles about working as a tour guide in a tourism industry, devastated by COVID, about supporting her elderly mother, about being single at 31 in a culture that expected women to be married with children by that age. She said she understood loneliness, that she felt it too. "Ray, I think you have very good heart," she wrote one evening. "Many men your age only think about themselves, but you think about other people. You have kind soul. I respect this very much." Raymond felt seen in a way he had not felt in years. They started having video calls at first, just brief check-ins, but gradually longer conversations where they would talk for an hour or more about their lives, their dreams, their hopes for the future. Nok was beautiful on video, but more importantly, she was engaging and genuine. She laughed at Raymond's jokes, asked about his parents, and seemed genuinely interested in who he was as a person. After 2 weeks of video calls, Nok said something that made Raymond's heart skip a beat. "Ray, I know this maybe sound crazy, but I feel very close to you. I think maybe you are my destiny. I know we not meet in person yet, but I feel in my heart that you are a good man, and I want to be with you. Is this too fast? Am I being silly?" Raymond felt tears prick his eyes. No one had spoken to him like that in years, with vulnerability, affection, hope. He told Knock she was not being silly, that he felt the same way, that he believed they had found something special. From that point on, Knock started calling Raymond her husband. She would send him good morning messages every day. "Good morning, my husband, I miss you. I hope you have a beautiful day." She would end their video calls by blowing kisses at the camera and saying, "I love you, my husband. I wait for you to come here so we can be together." Raymond believed every word. He believed he had found love again, that his retirement would not be spent alone, that Knock was his second chance at happiness. Call to action. If you're watching this and thinking, Raymond should have known better, understand that Knock didn't ask for money immediately. She spent months building trust, sending daily affection, creating the illusion of genuine love. That's what makes online romance scams so devastating and effective. Subscribe to this channel and share this video to help protect others from the kind of patient, systematic manipulation that cost Raymond everything. His story is about to spiral into complete financial destruction, and you need to see how easily trust can be weaponized from thousands of miles away. For the first 3 months of their relationship, October through December of 2022, Knock never asked Raymond for money. She continued to be warm, affectionate, and supportive. They video called almost every day, and Raymond felt like he was in a real relationship, even though they had never met in person. He had already decided he would move to Thailand in the spring of 2023, and he told Knock he could not wait to finally be with her. But in early January of 2023, Knock sent Raymond a message that would mark the beginning of the end. She said her mother had fallen ill and needed to see a doctor, but the family did not have enough money for the medical bills. Knock said she was embarrassed to ask, that she hated the idea of Raymond thinking she was only with him for money, but she did not know what else to do. "Ray, I am so sorry to ask this," Knock wrote. "My mother very sick. Doctors say she needs special medicine, cost 20,000 baht. I have some money but not enough. I hate to ask you for help, but I do not know who else to ask. If you cannot help, I understand. I do not want you to think I am a bad person." 20,000 baht was about 730 Canadian dollars. Raymond did not hesitate. He told Knock, of course he would help, that she should not be embarrassed, that taking care of family was important. He sent the money through Western Union that same day. Knock was overwhelmingly grateful. She sent him photos of her mother at a clinic, receipts from the pharmacy, and tearful video messages thanking him for being such a wonderful man. "You are my angel, Ray. You saved my mother. I will never forget this. I love you so much." Over the next few months, there were more requests. Knock's mother needed follow-up treatments. The roof of her family home was leaking and needed repairs. Knock's motorbike broke down, and she could not get to work without it. Each time, the amounts were relatively small, $1,000 here, $1,500 there, and each time, Knock would provide photos, receipts, and tearful gratitude. By April of 2023, Raymond had sent Knock approximately 15,000 Canadian dollars. It was more than he had intended to spend, but he told himself it was helping someone he loved, that it was an investment in their future together, that once he moved to Thailand, they would be together and these expenses would stop. But then Nok introduced a bigger idea. She said the tourism industry in Krabi was starting to recover from COVID, and she wanted to start her own small tour company rather than working for someone else. She said if she could buy a van and get proper licensing, she could build a successful business that would support both of them. She said she had some savings, but not enough to make it happen. "Ray, I have dream," Nok said during a video call. "I want to be my own boss. I want to have tour company. I can take people to beautiful places in Krabi, Railay Beach, Phi Phi Island. I will work very hard, and when you come here, you can help me with business. We will work together, build something together. This is my dream for us." Raymond loved the idea. He had run a business for decades, and he knew how to make a company successful. The idea of building something with Nok, of working together, rather than just retiring into aimless leisure, was appealing. He asked how much money she would need. Nok said she needed approximately 150,000 baht for a used van, another 100,000 for licensing and permits, and another 50,000 for initial operating costs. Total, 300,000 baht, approximately 11,000 Canadian dollars. Raymond told her he would help. He wired the money in 2 installments in May of 2023. Nok sent him photos of a van, documents that appeared to be business licenses, and excited video messages about how their dream was coming true. Over the summer of 2023, the financial requests escalated. Knox said the van needed unexpected repairs. The tour company needed insurance. There were fees for advertising and marketing. Each time, Knox would explain the expense, show Raymond documents or receipts, and frame it as an investment in their shared future. Raymond sent $5,000 in June, $8,000 in July, $12,000 in August. Each time, he told himself it was temporary, that once he moved to Thailand in October, they would be together and the expenses would stop. But each time, Knox had another urgent need, another crisis, another opportunity that required financial support. By September of 2023, Raymond had sent Knox a total of 75,000 Canadian dollars. He was starting to feel uncomfortable with how much money he was sending, but Knox was always grateful, always affectionate, always assuring him that once he arrived in Thailand, everything would be perfect. But then Knox told Raymond that her family home needed major renovations. She said the house was old and unsafe, that her mother was living in dangerous conditions, that they needed to repair the foundation and replace part of the roof. She sent Raymond photos of a dilapidated wooden house with visible structural damage. She said the repairs would cost approximately 400,000 baht, about 14,500 Canadian dollars. Raymond hesitated. He had already sent so much money, but Knox was emotional, tearful, saying she was ashamed to ask but did not know what else to do. She said her mother was elderly and deserved to live in a safe home, that Raymond's help would be a blessing to the entire family. Raymond sent the money. Knox sent him photos of construction workers at the house, materials being delivered, and progress updates. Everything seemed legitimate, but the construction ran over budget. There were unexpected costs. Materials were more expensive than anticipated. The workers needed to be paid in advance. Over the next 2 months, Raymond sent another 40,000 Canadian dollars for the renovations. By November of 2023, Raymond had sent Knox a total of 130,000 Canadian dollars. He was supposed to move to Thailand in October, but Knox had asked him to delay. She said the renovations were not finished, that the tour business was not fully operational, that it would be better if he waited until January, when everything was ready. Raymond agreed to wait. He trusted Knox. She sent him daily messages, called him her husband, showed him photos and videos of her life. Everything seemed real. In December of 2023, Knox told Raymond that there was a business opportunity they could not miss. She said a tour operator in Krabi was selling his client list and tour routes, and if they could buy it, Knox's tour company would instantly become profitable. She said it would cost 300,000 baht, about 11,000 Canadian dollars, but it would transform their business overnight. Raymond sent the money, but then there were more expenses. The tour routes required new permits. The client list needed to be transferred legally. There were fees and taxes. Raymond sent another $15,000. By the end of December, Raymond had sent Knox a total of 156,000 Canadian dollars. He was starting to feel anxious about the amount of money he was spending before even arriving in Thailand, but Knox assured him that once he arrived, everything would make sense, that he would see how well she had used the money, that they would be successful together. In January of 2024, Knox said her mother needed emergency surgery. She sent Raymond photos of her mother in a hospital bed, medical documents, and tearful video messages begging for help. The surgery would cost 200,000 baht, about 7,300 Canadian dollars. Raymond sent the money immediately. But then the recovery required expensive medications. Then there were follow-up treatments. Then the hospital required additional payments. Over 2 weeks, Raymond sent another $18,000. By late January, Raymond had sent Knox a total of 181,000 Canadian dollars. He was running out of money. His retirement savings were nearly depleted, but Knox told him this was the last expense, that her mother was recovering, that everything was finally stable, that he should book his flight to Thailand so they could finally be together. Raymond booked a flight for early February. He was nervous but excited. After more than a year of long-distance relationship, he would finally meet Knox in person, see the tour business they had built together, meet her family, and start the retirement life he had dreamed of. But in late January, just days before his flight, Knox sent one final request. She said the tour company needed to pay outstanding debts before Raymond arrived, that there were suppliers who needed to be paid or the business would be shut down. She said she needed 110,000 baht, about 4,000 Canadian dollars, to clear the debts and ensure the business was operating properly when Raymond arrived. Raymond scraped together the money and sent it. By the time he boarded his flight to Thailand in early February of 2024, he had sent Nok a total of 290,000 Canadian dollars, his entire retirement savings. Raymond landed at Krabi International Airport on a humid February afternoon, exhausted from the 14-hour journey but excited to finally meet Nok. He had told her his flight details, and she had promised to meet him at the airport, but as Raymond walked through the arrivals area, scanning the crowd for Nok's face, she was nowhere to be seen. He pulled out his phone and tried calling her. The call went straight to voicemail. He tried again, same result. He sent messages online, on Facebook, on WhatsApp. None of them delivered. Raymond felt a flutter of panic. Maybe her phone had died. Maybe she was stuck in traffic. He found a bench and sat down, waiting, refreshing his messages every few minutes. An hour passed, then 2 hours. Still nothing. Raymond tried calling Nok's number again. This time, the number was disconnected entirely. He checked her Facebook page. It was gone. Her Line account showed as no longer existing. Raymond felt his hands start to shake. This could not be happening. There had to be an explanation. Maybe Nok had lost her phone. Maybe there was an emergency. He pulled up the address she had given him for her family home and showed it to a taxi driver, asking to be taken there. The drive took about 30 minutes, leading through increasingly rural roads until they arrived at a small village. The taxi stopped in front of a modest wooden house. Raymond got out and knocked on the door. A middle-aged Thai woman answered, looking confused. Raymond tried to communicate, showing photos of Nok on his phone, asking if this was her family home. The woman shook her head and called her husband. Through broken English and hand gestures, they made it clear no one named Sasathorn or Nok lived here. This was their house. They had lived here for 20 years. The photos Nok had sent Raymond, the photos of the house needing renovations, the construction progress, the family gatherings, none of it had happened here. Raymond felt the world tilt. He got back in the taxi and asked to be taken to the tour company office, the address Nok had given him for her business. They drove back towards Central Krabi and stopped at a small commercial building. Raymond went to the office number Nok had specified. It was empty, no furniture, no equipment, no sign that any business had ever operated there. Raymond sat down on the curb outside the building, his head in his hands, unable to process what was happening. Nok was gone. The family home was fake. The tour business did not exist. $290,000, his entire retirement savings, was gone. Raymond went to the Krabi police station the next morning. He brought printouts of all his bank transfer records, screenshots of his conversations with Nok, copies of the photos and documents she had sent him. The police listened to his story and checked their records. The investigating officer told Raymond, through a translator, that the name Sasathorn Kittikorn was likely fake. The phone numbers Raymond had been calling were registered to different names. The bank accounts where Raymond had sent money had been opened with fake identification documents and had been closed shortly after each transfer cleared. The photos of Nok's family home had been stolen from someone else's Facebook page. Reverse image searches showed they had been posted by a completely different family years earlier. This is very common scam, the officer said. Woman target foreign man online, build relationship over many months, ask for money slowly. By the time victim realize what is happening, scammer is gone. Money is gone. Very difficult to recover. The officer said they would open an investigation, but he was not optimistic. The scammer had been careful: fake identities, closed accounts, no physical trail. Even if they could identify who was behind the scam, prosecuting them would be nearly impossible given the nature of the crime and the difficulty of proving intent. Raymond left the police station feeling completely destroyed. He had been scammed. The woman he had thought he loved, the woman he had sent daily messages to for over a year, the woman who had called him her husband and promised to build a life with him, had never been real. She was a professional criminal, likely running the same scam on multiple men simultaneously, extracting money through patient emotional manipulation and fabricated crises. Raymond had approximately 15,000 Canadian dollars left, barely enough to survive for a few months. He could not afford a flight back to Canada. He had no home to return to anyway. He had sold his apartment before leaving Vancouver, planning to make Thailand his permanent residence. Raymond moved to Chiang Mai, where the cost of living was lower than Krabi. He found a tiny room in a guest house for 5,000 baht per month, about 180 Canadian dollars. The room had a single bed, a small table, and a shared bathroom down the hall. It was all he could afford. He needed income. He started teaching English part-time at a small language school that hired foreigners without proper work permits. The pay was minimal, 300 baht per hour, about $11, but it was enough to cover rent and basic food expenses. Raymond, who had once owned a successful business and a home in Vancouver, was now living in a room smaller than his old walk-in closet, teaching basic English grammar to Thai children for pocket change. Over the months following the scam, Raymond learned more about how online romance fraud works. He joined support groups for scam victims, talked to other men who had similar experiences, and read extensively about the tactics these criminals use. Nok had been a professional. She had spent months building trust before asking for any money. She had created an entire fictional life, family, business, medical crises, all designed to make Raymond feel like he was helping someone he loved rather than being robbed. The photos she sent were either stolen from other people's social media accounts or staged specifically for the scam. The video calls had been real, but Nok was likely not her real name, and she was probably running the same scam on multiple men simultaneously. The most devastating part was how genuine it had all felt. Raymond had not been tricked by obvious lies or crude manipulation. He had been tricked by months of daily affection, consistent communication, and carefully constructed emotional intimacy. Nok had called his parents, remembered his birthday, asked about his health. She had made him believe he mattered to someone. But it was all theater. Every "I love you," every "I miss you," every "you are my husband" was part of a script designed to extract maximum money before disappearing. Raymond is now 63 years old, living in a tiny room in Chiang Mai, teaching English part-time to survive. He has no retirement savings, no property, no safety net. He spends his days teaching classes and his evenings alone in his room, thinking about the choices he made. He thinks about the first message Nok sent him, welcoming him to the expat group. He thinks about the first video call, when she smiled at him and made him feel seen. He thinks about every "good morning, my husband" message, every photo she sent, every tear she cried when asking for help. He thinks about how much he believed in it all, how completely convinced he was that he had found genuine love. Raymond now tries to warn other men about online romance scams. He posts in expat forums, shares his story on Facebook groups, and talks to anyone who will listen. But he knows most people will dismiss his warning. They will think they are smarter, more careful, that their online girlfriend is genuine. Raymond thought the same thing. He had run a successful business for decades. He was intelligent, experienced, practical. And yet, he was completely fooled by someone who understood that the key to a successful long-term scam is not to rush, but to build genuine-seeming emotional connection over months before ever asking for money. Raymond Collins is 63 years old, and he lost 290,000 Canadian dollars, his entire retirement savings, to a woman he never met. He sent the money over 10 months, believing he was helping his girlfriend's mother, building a tour business, renovating a family home. None of it was real. The girlfriend was a scammer. The mother was probably an actress or a stock photo. The tour business never existed, and the house renovations happened to someone else's home. Raymond moved to Thailand expecting to spend his retirement with a woman who loved him. Instead, he is living in a tiny room, teaching English part-time, surviving on the margins of expat society. He has no savings, no home, no prospects. He has only the crushing knowledge that he spent a year of his life falling in love with an illusion, and he paid his entire retirement for that illusion. Raymond thought he was investing in love. He was just paying for a performance. And now, as he sits in his small room in Chiang Mai, he understands that the cruelest scams are not the ones that steal your money quickly. They are the ones that steal your hope slowly, day by day, message by message, until you have given everything and there is nothing left. Raymond's story is a devastating reminder that online romance scams are not obvious or rushed. They are patient, systematic, and emotionally sophisticated. The scammer spends months building trust, creating intimacy, and making you believe you've found real love before systematically draining your savings. If this documentary has opened your eyes to how these scams work, please subscribe and share this video widely. Stay vigilant, never send money to someone you've never met in person, and remember, real love doesn't require you to wire your life savings to prove your devotion. Thank you for watching, and please, stay safe.